the special branch. Basically, what it was dignitary protection for high office holders. Bob Hawke was the Prime Minister, and we'd take him out to the races and, all these different places. And he was so down to earth and so funny and loved the cops.
Yeah. So what did you do in your spare time?
I went to sieges with my husband.
That's why you were flirting at the sieges, because you didn't have time for a social life.
My husband's idea of date night, well, let's go down to the Armoury Range and, on a Saturday night and fire off a cannon or something. I was involved in the arrest of Ivor Milat.
Yes.
As we were driving out there, it was like a scene out of, a movie. There were 30 police cars.
Oh, it was a huge operation.
At 5:30 in the morning, we're driving out there and there's blue lights on, very silent in the back streets of going from Campbelltown out to where he lived. And I was like, wow. And I said to Mahonk, look, I just want to say, we really can't afford to fuck this up.
So that's your sage advice
before
the arrest of Ivor
Milat.
Milat.
There were 3 offenders. The main one was a guy called Leadbeater, and he had a delusional fixation. They had killed people across 3 states. They'd gone from Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, and just gone up to people in campgrounds and just shot them dead.
The I Catch Killers podcast was a fresh start for me, as I left policing behind and started a new life. Over the years, we've laughed together, cried, and shared some powerful moments. Welcome to I Catch Killers. Policing is acknowledged for being a rewarding but tough way to earn a living. Today's guest, Carolyn O'Hare, spent over 40 years in New South Wales Police, which is a pretty amazing feat in its own right. She retired only last year after an impressive and varied career. Today, she's going to talk to us about her career in uniform and as a detective, working as a negotiator, counter-terrorist investigator, and also in dignitary protection. She is also a police prosecutor and is a qualified solicitor. She worked in internal affairs and has made a significant contribution to policing across the country. We're going to hear from her today about heading up the negotiators team during the Kangaroo siege and the arrest of Ivor Milat. She's a fun lady, as you're going to find out, who is very respected and liked throughout her career. And she's going to give us a fascinating insight into the crazy world of policing. Our career paths first crossed during the Sydney Olympics, where I was doing close personal protection, and she was the operations commander of dignitary protection. Just to add to the pressure of that position, she was also 6 months pregnant at the time. Before we start, I probably should also add, in 2011 she won the Australasian Women in Policing Leader of the Year award, which is a significant award. As you would expect of someone who has spent 40 years as a cop, she has some amazing stories, and today we're lucky to have her here in the studio sharing those stories with us. Carolyn O'Hare, welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thank you. Is this when I get a caution or?
Now I've let that life go. Clearly you haven't, but I could caution you. I do miss throwing out the caution. You're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so. But whatever you say may later be used in evidence.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I agree. I actually agree.
Okay. Well, there you are. So whatever we say now, we can use that as evidence. It's funny that things like that just get embedded in your brain, doesn't it? You can switch straight back into that mode.
Absolutely.
Even though you've been out of it for a long time.
Yeah.
So how's husband Rick going?
He's pretty good. He's actually still working.
That is he's done a long sentence,
Yeah,
hasn't he?
it's nearly 44 years.
Yeah.
And but he's enjoying what he's doing. He's got one project he wants to finish.
Yeah.
And then I think he'll pull the pin. But he's going really well.
Well, I first met Rick when he was a team leader in the Tactical Operations Unit, and I was doing secondments there. So it would have been a pretty interesting household with you guys there. You working as a negotiator, and him dressed in his black overalls with all the weapons and ready to go in and arrest the armed offenders after you've been speaking to them.
Absolutely, and it was during our courtship, really.
You fell in love with the siege?
Well, kind of, yeah, actually.
Maybe you should have been concentrating on working, you two.
I know, but I do remember one job we went to where I was the team leader of the negotiators and Rick was the senior field supervisor for the tactical team, and it was a job at Glebe actually, and we're trying to get a guy out. I forget what the issue was, and I said to Rick, look, I don't think we're going to negotiate this guy out. I think it's going to have to be a tactical option. And He said, no, I think you can keep negotiating. And I said, no, I don't think so. And this conversation was going on over the back channels of the TOU, and all the guys and all the negotiators going, are they having a domestic? Like
that is funny. Just to add to the pressure and the drama of a siege.
Exactly.
A little bit of domestic conflict always livens the place up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, very, very funny. You joined the police in 1981.
Yes.
Okay, it was a different world back then.
Yeah, it sure was. First of all, I was a junior trainee, which meant that I had my HSC, but I was too young to go to pass out. I was only 18. So I joined and went to Redfern. Yeah. And after 2 weeks of, doing rule book amendments and shoveling out hay in the
horse sheds.
Yeah, horse sheds. They sent me to Petersham, which at that time was a punishment station, I later found out. I didn't know what a punishment station was, but if you did something bad in the cops, that's where you were sent.
You'd meet all types in the punishment station.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a strange place.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, in prepping for the podcast, you sent me some stuff, and I laughed that one of your early recollections of your early time in policing was cooking the prisoners' meals. And basically, and it wouldn't stand today's test of time, would it? For some reason, the Police Social Fund had the contract to supply the prisoners' meals.
Yes.
You were cooking the meals, and it was baked beans on toast for breakfast,
lunch, and dinner. Yes, I was really shocked when they said, you've got to cook the prisoners' meals. And I said, but I don't know how to cook. They said, it doesn't matter. Don't have to worry about that. Just heat up the baked beans, some toast, and a cup of tea, and that's it. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And by the way, while you're there, go and put the flag up.
Oh, that's right. I
thought that was a bit of a joke. Yeah. And I went out and the flag was going up and down the flagpole because I had no idea how to even do that. But yeah, prisoners' meals, those poor old prisoners, I felt sorry for them.
I felt sorry for them too, because invariably they'd be caught in the police station cells if the jails were full or they're waiting to go to court, and they'd spend some time there. And I remember picking up prisoners' meals, and it was basically fish and chips or something for breakfast, lunch and dinner. So
they should have come to Petersham.
Yeah, baked beans on toast. I bet you they were really disappointed when they were released from the cells, missing your cooking.
That's it.
Okay, well that's a strange introduction into policing. Just give us an overview of your policing career. Like 40 years, 41 years?
42.
42 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, and I when I passed out from the academy at Redfern, I went to GDs at North Sydney for about 20 months. And that was interesting because in those days we just had straight skirts. Our uniform was very restrictive. It was just straight skirts, blue stockings, blue flat ugly shoes, and a little jacket with our gun concealed underneath our uniform top so that people couldn't see it because it was considered too confronting for the members of the public to see a gun. So all the guns were actually concealed within the holster for the men as well, and it was a cross-draw holster, so you'd have to lift up the flap of the holster with your left hand if you're right-handed, pull the gun out with your right hand and fire. Women had small guns because they were considered to have small hands, so we had...
You just weren't tough enough to
That's
hold
right.
That. Yeah.
Five shooter Smith & Wesson with 5 extra bullets and handcuffs and a baton and a handbag.
I don't remember that. They were police issue handbags.
Police issue handbags. My handbag.
They would have been stylish.
Oh, very. Yeah. They went with the shoes. Mine is actually in the police armoury little museum that my husband's put together because he's the commander of the armoury. And every time I go in there and there's some probationary constable in there bringing a gun back or doing something, I always say, that's my handbag. And that's when I first joined the police. They just look at me and think, oh, you poor thing.
It seems like a lifetime ago. And just what policing's evolved to. Like you only retired last year. But I remember there was no computers when we first came. There was what was a telex machine?
Yeah, a fax. It was it was a telex, and it came out. And lots of cops who listen to this would remember these. You'd type it up, and it'd come out on a tape, and then you put the tape back into the telex, and hopefully didn't put it in upside down or back to front because it all would come out,
Or some buffet would walk in and walk over your telex tape
Yes.
and you had to retype the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we had Sylvester telephone boards, the operator boards with the pull-in, pull-out plugs and all that sort of stuff. No computers, no portable radios.
Yeah. It is hard to comprehend, isn't it? Like I remember those switchboards because when you were a junior police officer, invariably you had station duty, and I still remember you had to pull that lead out, plug that one in, connect there, and it was just constant. I never thought I'd join the police. I thought it was going to be an exciting adventure, and here I am. Hornsby Police Station, hello, can I help you? It was just, it just became, And
Exactly.
you put your receptionist voice on.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't help it, but different times. So just a quick overview of your career. You've worked in such a variety of areas.
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
Okay, so then in North Sydney, I went on to A-list when I had about 20 months service.
Yeah.
I had done a few jobs, a few sexual assault statements for the Ds, and they said to me, "Are you interested in plain clothes?" And I was really interested. I wanted to, that interested me a lot. So I was there for about 12 months, and then the boss came to me and he said, "I've got 4 women. Here's your transfer to the Nappy Squad," which was the Juvenile Crime Squad at the CIB. Off you go. And so off I went, and it was really good opportunity because everything was indictable. All the matters went to the Supreme Court, the District Court. They were all
were
serious. Child abuse, child sexual assault. We helped. And at that time, people were just starting to come forward with complaining about historical sexual assaults from when they were children. So the workload was massive. So it was great learning opportunity. And then I went to Balmain Detectives for about 5 years and worked at Ashfield and Annandale and Balmain and really enjoyed that. And then after that, I went to the Special Branch.
Okay.
Yeah, which was... a period of my career I don't often talk about.
No one talks about this. No one talks about
because
the
it was
special
very
branch.
special.
I think the name. It just I remember this. What do the special? I don't know.
What do they do?
They seem to do everything that no one else
does.
did.
Yeah. Well, actually, basically, what it was dignitary protection for high office holders, and also counter-terrorism, intelligence, and investigations.
Yeah,
So we worked a lot in those days with Commonwealth intelligence agencies and also looking after, dignitaries. So Bob Hawke was the Prime Minister and we take him out to the races and, all these different places. And he was so down to earth and so funny and loved the cops.
Yeah.
People like that. The Governor-General was Sir Ninian Stephen, and he'd arrive at the Qantas Jet Base and, on Air Force One or whatever plane it was, and the door would open and galloping down the steps would be his Labrador, which would go straight into the back seat of the Rolls Royce. Yeah. And we'd take him to, Admiralty House at Kirribilli and...
It was the special branch, and if there was any issues that needed to, let's say, be handled with discretion, they were
the special branch did it.
The special branch would come in, so they were interesting times.
Yeah, there were really some interesting times, and I worked with some really good people there. John Garvey, I don't know if you know John Garvey.
I know John. Yeah, great reputation.
Yeah, and we were kind of like the lock-up squad. So if there were any lock-ups, because we were both detectives, and there were other people there too who did that as well. But I remember working with John a lot. And he was fantastic. I learned so much from him.
That would have opened your eyes up to the world too, seeing that. And hanging out with a Prime Minister and doing things. It's eye-opening, isn't it?
It is. And I think the thing is too, in those days, there was no internet. So if you wanted to know about the Palestine Liberation Organisation, you actually had to research it in ways other than the internet. So it was a different era of policing. So it was good. It was really interesting. I loved it. I loved counter-terrorism.
And where did you go to from there?
From there, I'm trying to remember. I went to Internal Affairs, I think, for about a year, and then I went to the Royal Commission into the building industry.
Yeah, I tried to get into the Royal Royal Commission, into that strike force, because I had worked in the building industry, but I was told I was pulled aside because my father was high up in the building industry. Ooh. And said, "Oh no, there could be a conflict of interest."
Oh really? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It was really interesting, and I met some really interesting people, some really ruthless people, some really great people. But it was really an eye opener, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
The building industry back in those days, there was a lot going on in the building industry, and it was the fact that there was a commission into it was important.
Absolutely, it was very political.
Yeah,
and but it was interesting, and there was a lot of corruption from every facet involved in the building industry from all sides. So yeah, it was good. I learned a lot actually.
Okay, so where to from there?
After that, I went to the prosecutors. I became a prosecutor at Northwest Region, and I loved prosecuting. I realised I knew nothing as a detective. Yeah. And in between all of that, I became a negotiator as well. So I did 3 years at Blacktown Court as a prosecutor. I worked with really fantastic prosecutors, Dave Parcell, Steve McGrath. What they didn't know about the law was not worth knowing.
Yeah, just those names, it brings back memories, because I crossed paths with them during my career, and they were very good at what they did.
Yeah. There was one guy, Trevor Osborne, and all the solicitors would come and ask him for advice. And I remember magistrate asked me to address on a particular piece of case law, and he said, "I'll speak to you after morning tea." So I raced back and I said, "Trevor, I don't know what I'm doing. What is this?" And he said, "Well, I was the court constable on that case in 1972 at Rockdale, and da-da-da-da," and explained the whole thing. Like, he was like an encyclopedia. So lucky to have those old guys who just knew everything.
In the legal fraternity too, you had so much time on your feet in court, because the prosecutors would handle a lot of matters, and even the committal hearings for indictable offences.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic, and it was really, at Blacktown, it was kind of, I called it meatball kind of like surgery. It was like going in one door, coming out another, and people would have domestics in the registrar's call over, and you'd, almost be locking up the people going to court for their matters because they're having punch-ups in the
chaos of
the chaos. Yeah.
But it was a good area to learn your skill set too.
Absolutely. The flow-on effect from Mount Druitt as well, for custodies and all that sort of stuff, it was just constant. But it was a great learning experience, and I loved it at Blacktown.
I thought even when I was giving evidence at the local court, like most of the latter part of my career, it was always at the Supreme Court. But I learnt my skills in the witness box at the lower court, because it might only be for minor matters, or relatively minor matters, but it was robust. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was really fantastic. And it's quite intimidating as a prosecutor to go in and you think, I'm up against this particular solicitor or whoever. And then sometimes I'd sit back and I remember one day I thought, I think I actually know more than he does, because what he's saying. And I thought, wow, that was such a shock to me, because you just get so much experience all day, every day. Yeah, you're just in court.
And you'd have those quirky magistrates too.
Quirky magistrates, absolutely. I remember one at Fairfield. This guy came in, it was a domestic, and of course he came in with his wife arm in arm, and he's charged with, assaulting her. And I'm like, okay, this is probably not going to go well. He gets in the witness box, and, he was defending himself, fool for a client.
Yep.
And I said, you hit her, didn't you? He said, yeah, but I didn't beat and ill-treat her, because that's what it said.
On the charge sheets.
And the magistrate just looked at him and said, yeah, nothing, you can step down now.
He thought he jammed you up on the legal
technicality. He did.
Slapped around, but not what it says on the indictment.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy times. From your career, all the other stuff that you've done, which we'll delve into, but I think people listening will get a sense of the broad and wide-ranging variety of things that you did in the cops. But in between all that, doing the police work, you got a lot of academic qualifications too.
Yeah, I was a bit obsessive about going to uni.
Talk us through that.
Look, I grew up in Wollongong. I went to Berkeley High School, which was named by the local paper, the Illawarra Mercury, as a nursery for criminals, which is probably, I won't say anything disparaging about it.
Won't say anything bad about Newcastle. We've got a lot of listeners down there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I survived it, and I always thought, I wanted to get an education. I felt like I didn't really get and education. And I was interested in law and criminology and all that sort of stuff, but I really didn't have the confidence to go to uni. I thought, I'm not smart enough for that. And Frank McGoldrick was my boss at the prosecutors, and I said, I think I'm thinking about doing law or criminology. And he said, you're crazy if you don't. I said, I just think maybe I'm not smart enough. He said, don't be ridiculous. And he really pushed me, and I did it, and I loved it. So I did criminology at Sydney Uni Law School, and then I had a bit of confidence. I thought, maybe I can do law. Maybe I'm not that dumb after all. It's terrible to think that way. And then I did law, and also did a Bachelor of Policing in prosecutions, which I don't think they run anymore. But yeah, so it was good. I enjoyed it, and going to uni as a mature age student.
Yeah.
With a lot of other mature age students and a lot of cops and all that sort of stuff. It was great. We really worked together and helped each other.
I think getting those qualifications helps with your own self-confidence too. Okay, well, because you look at these people and, especially in the field that you were working in, prosecuting, that you look at these people and think, well, I can't really match it with them, but to then put yourself through that and get all those qualifications. So what did you do in your spare time?
I know.
Was there any spare time?
Well, I went to sieges with my husband.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why you were flirting at the sieges, because you didn't have time for a social life. So you had to.
That's it.
Okay. That makes sense now.
My husband's idea of date night when he was at the TOU is, let's go down to the Armoury Range and, on a Saturday night and fire off a cannon or something.
But you would have won the arguments with your negotiating skills.
Well, that's what he says.
Yeah.
That's what he says. I'm not sure that that's always true, though, because he just says no.
I
said, what about that? I was thinking, he says, don't think.
Yeah.
Just don't think.
And it just makes me laugh, the thought of you two at sieges and that, with you negotiating, him sitting there. Yeah. With very, very funny times.
Absolutely.
Who were you before you joined the police?
Well, I grew up in Berkeley, Berserkly, as many people call it.
Nothing to be ashamed of.
Nothing to be ashamed of. It is what it is.
Yep.
And proud that I survived it, because, a lot of kids I went to school with, they didn't. And there was a lot of crime, and kids I went to school with who were murdered or who conducted murders. I mean, I'm not talking about lots, but it was pretty rough upbringing, and I didn't realise that until I joined the cops and looked back. And I always thought we were really rich living in Berkeley, because I wasn't cold, I wasn't hungry, and I wasn't neglected. And there are a lot of kids who were in that boat, not all of them, but some of them. And so I thought, we must be the rich people. And then I went to North Sydney as a probationary constable. I'm driving around Mossman looking at these houses and thinking, maybe we weren't rich. Suddenly realised.
That house wasn't that big after all.
No, it kept growing as we had more kids. So I was the third of 4 kids, and I was lucky I had an older brother and sister at school, so I kind of felt protected at high school by them.
Paved the way.
But my parents were just battlers, and they worked hard, and my dad worked in the steelworks. And when I wanted to join the police, I left home at 18, and
What made you think joining the police? Because back then it wasn't a career for women, or
no,
it was
wasn't.
a career that it was rather odd that women would even want to join the police.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Even now, Gary, even now.
No, we've progressed. Come on, surely we've progressed.
We have.
A little bit. One step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually.
Well, a couple of reasons. Firstly, my brother had joined the police. He was 2 years older than me, but he didn't stay. He actually developed schizophrenia at 19 when he was about 2 years in, and left. And I guess seeing him in the police and all that sort of stuff, I thought, wow, that's so interesting. And I really wanted to help people. I thought maybe I've got something to contribute to the community. And I have almost an obsessional fascination with people and their motivation for doing things. And, I think it was an NYPD officer said that being in the cops is like having a front row ticket to the best show on earth.
Yeah.
And because you're just exposed to everything. And I've always been curious about why people do what they do. Why does this person commit this crime? Or, criminals don't have a great big X on their back. They're just ordinary, mundane people a lot of the time. But their motivation really interested and fascinated me.
It is a fascinating view into the world, a world that most people, I think that's the obsession people have with crime and true crime stuff. It's a world that most people, fortunately, don't get to see. But what is behind that curtain? Why do people do these type of things? So
absolutely. And you never know what people are going through. Everybody has their bad day. And I remember when I was a probationary constable, this woman came into the police station and I was the reserve constable behind the counter. And she said, she was probably in her 50s. She said, I've just read in the Sydney Morning Herald that my son's fiancé has been murdered. And she was really distressed. So I, saw the sergeant, got onto the detectives, came down. Turns out her son had a domestic with the fiancé, had punched her. They were both drunk. She died as a result of the assault. So then we had to tell her that it was her son. And she was devastated and she kept fainting and I had to care for her that day. And she said to me, you know what? She said, how do I face that poor girl's parents? She said, you always think about the family of the person who's been murdered. Yeah. She said, how do I live with this knowing that my son did this? And I really felt great compassion for her. I just thought, of course, the victim's family completely and utterly devastated. But this poor woman, she was just like so shocked. And this guy who did the murder, his brother was a police officer. It was just the most bizarre thing.
Shows, and you were a kid back then when you look at it. And I look back at some of the things I saw and did as a police officer, but you didn't really have time to reflect on what it was. But what you've just touched on there, that crime, murder's at the extreme, but any crime affects so many, many people.
Absolutely.
And you see the parents of offenders that come in and they've done everything in their power to put their kid, they love their kid, they've tried to do everything they can and the kid's gone off track for whatever reason. Yeah. And it impacts on them. But the fact that you could understand that, I think that probably having that type of understanding of the nuances that come into play with crime would have carried you all the way through your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, empathy and compassion, and even for lots of people, and, like I said, criminals don't have the big X on their back. I remember when I was in GDs again, we got called to a shoppie at, shoplifting at Woolworths at Crow's Nest, and this woman had stolen a leg of lamb. Who steals a leg of lamb? Why are you stealing a leg of lamb? It's because you want to feed your family. Like, it was just heartbreaking to me. Those sorts of incidents really, resonated with me and left an impact. And I just thought, you poor woman, like that, you have to steal a leg of lamb. And they wanted her charged, and she was charged, and she just had this blank look on her face and almost like she'd given up. You know what I mean?
And the embarrassment and the shame,
horrible.
A person that's trying to look after their children. But you mentioned the word empathy, and we use that word a lot in the podcast here, and I do it in the context that the good police officers, the good detectives that I know that I looked up to, that were my mentors, all had that empathy.
Absolutely.
In their arsenal, that they would understand people. And you did criminology, also negotiating. You've got to understand where people are coming from, what's making them do what they're doing.
Absolutely, which has always been my fascination, is why, look behind what is right in front of you. What's behind that? Yeah. How have we arrived, or how's that person arrived at this point in their life, And sometimes it's just tragic.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
There is a lot of sadness there. But like any person that's been in the police for long enough, you would have seen some funny stuff too.
Absolutely, yes. I did see a lot of funny things and, dark humour.
Yes.
No,
that's accepted on I Catch Killers, and I think we've explained it enough. People don't get to spend over 40 years in the cops as long as you did without being able to see some light or humour in the darkness. Otherwise, you're just going to destroy yourself.
Absolutely.
So, our listeners are accustomed to the dark humour.
Okay. So it's, I think, interesting the people that you work with, and we talked before we came on air about Mahonk, who is a legend.
We'll talk further about Mahonk.
Yes. Yeah. And
Shout out to Wayne Gordon. How are you?
Shout out to Wayne Gordon.
Yeah.
God love you, Mahonk.
Yeah.
I was involved in the arrest of Ivor Milat.
Yes.
And Mahonk, Wayne Gordon, Detective Sergeant with a very deep voice and very tough and very big and very intimidating, was the primary negotiator on our team. So there were 4 of us on the team. There was Mahonk, John O'Reilly, Peter Gillam, and myself as the team leader. And we got called out, was told 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, you've got to be at Campbelltown Police Station. Didn't know what the job was, had no idea whatsoever. Get out there, we're actually going to go and lock up a serial killer. I was like, right?
Okay,
and I was
that's
thinking,
as real as it gets.
Geez, this is a bit scary. And they said, well, we want you to negotiate him out because, we don't know what he's got in his house. It's too dangerous for his protection and for the cops and all the rest of it. We're going to do it as a negotiation. Happy days. Mahonk, with his deep voice, and because we knew that Milat was a person who was really, because I read some of the brief that morning, I didn't know who he was before that, seemed to be a person that was very much focused on power and establishing power with his victims, that he would not respond to somebody like me saying, would you please come out? He needed
He'd try to get over the top
equal power, and Mahonk was the person with that equal power.
Yeah.
I'm Detective Sergeant Wayne Gordon, that sort of thing. So we really had to think about how we were going to do it, and we talked about being strong and assertive from the very beginning of the negotiation, and not being so complacent, but more directional. Not if you come out, when you come out, this is what will happen. Okay. So setting the tone from the outset, and then as we were driving out there, it was like a scene out of a movie. There were 30 police cars.
Oh, it was a huge operation.
At 5:30 in the morning, we're driving out there and there's blue lights on, very silent in the back streets of going from Campbelltown out to where he lived. And I was like, wow. And I said to Mahonk, look, I just want to say we really can't afford to fuck this up.
So that's your sage advice.
Before
the arrest of Ivor
Milat.
Exactly. Don't fuck up.
Don't fuck up. And he said, yeah, thanks for that. And I said, no, really, I said, I'm a bit worried that this could turn into a siege. Yeah. So we just have to be forceful from the get-go. And obviously he didn't need to be told that. He knew that. But I was sort of putting my fears onto him just to make sure he got the message. We don't want to be here this time tomorrow morning with a serial killer.
But, there was a lot of pressure on there because of the nature of the crime. It was as big as it gets in the history of policing with taking down Ivor Milat. And it was crucial from the arrest at the time, the stuff that was found at his place and everything
It was really amazing, honestly, Gary, because Mahonk rang and said, I'm Detective Sergeant, da-da-da-da-da-da. Is Ivor Milat there? And he said, no, he's not here. And this is at 6 a.m. He was as bright as a button. And I just thought, wow, this guy, most people answer the phone on a Sunday morning at that hour, go, what's going on? Not him.
No, he was
And
sharp.
that was pretty scary.
Tell him.
And then after he came out, and by the way, my husband was a sniper on that job too. Just
cool.
saying.
Cool. It's like a date night. It's
he was
great.
his last job as a sniper, actually. Yeah, it was date night.
What do you want to do
In
tonight?
our house.
Oh, let's go arrest a serial killer. That's beautiful. Your relationship just rocks.
Yeah. But the investigators, we went, because we were actually around the corner and up the street when we did the negotiation. We went right there, and we went around to the house, and honest to God, they were going over every blade of grass in that front yard. It was just massive, nothing I'd ever seen. It was really, those investigators did such a fantastic job. And it was, even just looking at his photo before we went there, I looked at the photo and I thought, this guy looks so powerful. He was just very, I don't even know what the word, intimidating.
I've seen him in prison and he put off an aura. There was something, you looked and there's something strange going on there.
Yeah.
And there was that whole power thing and just the brutal nature of the crimes. But full credit to everyone involved in it. I'm glad Mahonk didn't fuck up.
Yeah, me too. We might be still there.
Mahonk
he did a fantastic job.
Can you bring this to a closure? My first experience with Mahonk, and this is always said with the greatest respect, I think I was in homicide. He was in gang squad, and there was a job that overlapped. And I didn't really know him. It was relatively early in our careers. And I'm on the phone to him, and Mahonk in his deep negotiator's voice basically told me to pull my head in and And so that was waving the red flag of the bull. So I upped the ante, and I think we're saying threats to each other, what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then Mahonk just switched and went, oh, no, that's all right. Okay, we'll do that. There was a toughness about him, but there was a softness about him too. Not a softness. He presents as this rough, tough, knock-em-down type guy. But he was a deep thinker too. Or he is a deep thinker.
He is a deep thinker. And I have to say, I had a bit of a drama one day at work and I was really upset and I walked out of a meeting crying like a big blubber. And it was a personal thing. And he came down to my office and he just opened the door and came and gave me the biggest hug and said, "You're right, darling,"
Yeah.
And just really, Mahonk has a tenderness.
Yes.
And when you see it, he really does have a heart.
Yeah.
That is big. He's very, very. He's got a very emotional side. That
people don't see, and he doesn't allow people to see. And his reputation preceded him, I think, all over the place. Some of the stories, I don't know if they're true, but Mahonk, when computers come in, like, what is this shit? That's not going to catch on. And I don't know if it's true, so I apologise if it's not true, but it's pretty funny if it is, that he was fighting with a computer, as you would imagine Mahonk would fight with a computer, and picked it up and threw it across the room. There, problem solved. No more computer. Now can we get back to the typewriters?
Yes. Is there a constable who can use a computer? Get in here.
Yeah. But no, I liked him. I liked working with him, and I always a smile on my face when we've that first conflict, and it wasn't personal, and it's just okay. That's fair. All right. At least you stood up to me. Let's move forward now. So.
And I think that that's a really big thing when you have somebody like that can be quite intimidating, and if you have a bit of a biff or whatever with them, and they can just say, okay, well, let's get on with it now. Yeah, that's amazing.
I thought, oh, here we go, because he was obviously senior to me. I go, here we go. I've got myself into trouble again. And but no, all right, okay, I understand your point. Well, maybe we could do it this way. Yeah. So.
And you know what? The other thing is, I was a senior constable and I was the team leader.
Yeah.
And the other three on the team were all sergeants. And at one time it was Graham White as well, who's also fantastic. And they were so respectful of me. But because I had more experience, been in the negotiators for a longer period, I was made a team leader. But just the work we did together and everything, it was such a great model, and it worked really well. And they were so respectful, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, I think when the pressure's on the sharp end of policing, and when we say sharp end, I always throw this out because we know general duties. People that spend a career in general duties, they mightn't have the profile or whatever, but we know the type of work they do. They're the first responders. They're the ones that go in and don't know what they're going to face. But when you're working at negotiating stage, if you're not flirting with Rick, there's and just concentrating on doing your job instead of making eyes at the tactical team leader, there's a lot of pressure there, and everyone has got to. That's when all the training, all the skill set has to really kick in, and it doesn't surprise me that three strong personalities, but they fell into line on that because the job was so important. The job comes first.
Yeah,
it's not about personalities.
And I think going out to and working with the GD's front line with negotiation jobs, it was really fantastic for me too, because I got back to the sharp end as such of policing, and all the commanders were always fantastic. They welcomed us in. They said, look, this is what's happening, da-da-da-da-da, and I have to say, one time I did say, look, this is not going to take too long because I've got a hair appointment.
I love this is the real behind the scenes policing. What's the issue? I know it's a bad siege, but I've got this hair appointment, and that salon is so hard to get into.
Yeah. That's right. So we've got to be out of here in 45 minutes.
Did you explain that to the person that was
doing my hair?
the person locked up? Excuse me, do you realise there are other things happening?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. It's worth it to everybody else for me to get my hair done, okay?
Well,
I'm just saying.
At least you didn't send Rick in to resolve it without any... Haven't got time to negotiate. Rick, go in and get him.
Yeah. But you know what? So many vulnerable people in neg jobs. Sorry, I'm digressing. I just remembered one. It was at Cremorne. This guy was threatening to stab himself.
Yeah.
And he was standing on the roof of a block of units, and we were in the block of units next door.
Yeah.
Standing out on a balcony. And I was the first negotiator there. I don't even think the tactical guys were there. And there was a young policewoman who was negotiating with him. So I went up with her and I said, keep going, I'll just be here next to you, da-da-da-da-da. And anyway, he ran through a plate glass window back into the unit, and I said, he's coming to get us. Upstairs, I said, quick, shut the door, close the front, because we had the front door open. I thought he's coming up here to get us. And we're trying to shut the front door and the deadlock's on and it couldn't open it, all that sort of stuff. It was quite, when I think back now, and she was so fantastic, this young girl. And then the tactical team came and this guy said, you know what, I've called all my friends in the last 3 days. His girlfriend left him or something. Yeah. And he said, nobody will talk to me. He said, I'll come out if you give me a hug. So I said to the tactical blokes, I said, he'll come out for a hug. And they said, are you stupid? What's wrong with you? You're not going to give him a stinking hug, are you? I said, do you want to be here all night? They said, no. I said, I'm giving him a hug. So anyway, he came to the door and I said, this is what's going to happen. There's all these guys, they've got black gear on, they're da-da-da-da-da, and they're going to search you. And then, after that, we'll have a hug.
We can hug it out.
We can hug, and then you're going to go to the hospital. Explain the whole process. But they were mortified that and I said, well, if that's what gets him out, that's what gets him out.
See, I like that type of policing and thinking outside the square. Like, you would have broken every rule that you were taught, but it helps resolve the situation. It's a common sense approach and understanding approach.
When he came out, he sat in the police car, in the back of the police car, and they were going to take him to the hospital. And I said, I'm not coming to the hospital with you, but you're safe and the police will take you and all that sort of stuff. And he said, he looked around, he said, all of this just for me, because, there were a lot of cops there. He was armed, the tactical team were there, the NEGs, the GDs. It was a big response. Yeah. And he said, I can't believe that all of this was just for me, that you helped me, And I said, well, that's what we're here for.
Oh, that's good if you can help people in that way, because there's some bizarre situations in those sieges, isn't there?
And people get into a situation and then they just don't know how to get out of it. Yeah. They throw the grenade in, it explodes, and they go, oh, my God, there's a grenade exploded. What do I do now?
Well, I think the role of a good negotiator is to de-escalate when it's like that, because you can ramp it up or take it down. Yeah. So it's a fascinating side of it. You did you worked on another siege while we're talking about as a negotiator, the Kangi siege. Yep. Can you describe the situation there? Because I remember that because it was such an unusual situation and a lot of layers to it. Yeah,
it was. There were 3 offenders. The main one was a guy called Leadbeater, and he had a delusional fixation that he was setting up his own religion, all this sort of stuff. I think basically he wanted to suicide, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He had a young gay lover who was Robbie Steele, and who was much younger than him, and another guy who actually came out before I came on my shift for the NEG, so I didn't have much to do with him. But they had killed people across 3 states. They'd gone from Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, and just gone up to people in campgrounds and just shot them dead for no apparent reason.
How many people did they kill, do you recall?
They killed 5 people.
Right, okay. And that was in
1993.
So the crime wave that these guys were going on, how long did that last?
I think it was about 9 days across Queensland, New South Wales. They just were crazy.
And just killing random people.
And they took some people hostage up at Hanging Rock, up at Kangi, and there were a couple of kids inside, and Mike Willisey got on the phone to them. For some reason, he was able to get through to the house phone, so we couldn't actually get through. And he was talking to them, which was a big problem for us. Yeah, absolutely. And so what happened, the tactical team flew up there and we actually did the negotiation from Sydney, from the old CIB in the Remington building, which was the first time we'd done it at distance. It was a couple of 100 kilometres. So we had constant contact with the tactical team about what was going on with the negotiations. And once again, Mahonk was one of the negotiators and he should have gotten a commendation for that. I don't think that he did, but he really should have because he did a fantastic job. And so Leadbeater was fixated on killing himself and he said, all right, I'm going to come out now. I'm going to go in a blaze of glory and all this sort of stuff. And he'd come outside the house. We'd say, don't do that. He'd come outside the house and he'd hide behind a bush because he was actually scared.
Talk up a big game.
Talk up a big game, exactly. Anyway, we managed to negotiate Robbie Steele, his lover, out. We said, Robbie's got a lot to live for. He was getting a big compensation payout. He had a brain injury from a car accident, all this sort of stuff. And what was the most fascinating thing was that eventually Leadbeater said, yeah, okay, Robbie can go. And we said, you'll have to tell him to go because he won't listen to us. And so Leadbeater negotiated with Robbie Steele for Robbie to go. Isn't that bizarre?
It is bizarre.
Not only that, these people had killed people and when they were saying their goodbyes, they're crying, so much emotion. It was just the most bizarre thing. I thought at the time, on the one hand, you can be cold-blooded killers and on the other hand, you're showing all this emotion about separating from each other. So Robbie Steele came out. Leadbeater eventually killed himself inside the stronghold and wrote a note and he said, thank you to us, to the police, I really appreciate everything you did and all that sort of stuff. Which, it's kind of like, it's just bizarre, isn't it?
It is bizarre. And the things that you see and do in that role as a negotiator, how did it impact on you personally? In those type of things, because the pressure's on. Like I know, like I've been to those sieges, and we might turn up as a tactical police, and you guys are on the loud hailer or on the phone trying to talk these people out. And I've been at some sieges where I get so bored with the negotiators.
I used to get bored.
Yeah, because
just come on.
And you're laying there with your rifle or whatever, and you're thinking, why don't you say this to him? Because you're trying to fill in the time, and you're hearing the negotiators. And I know there's a set protocol, and there's very sound reasons why you're saying things. But sometimes I felt like just getting up, give me the loud hailer, let me have a shot at it.
I know.
There's a lot of pressure. How did it impact on you personally after a job like that? You're on a high, or is it just drained, or?
Yeah, I think just drained. And sometimes I think I did a job that went for, it was a Monday morning. I started work, finished work, and at like 6 p.m. got called out, and it went till about 2 p.m. the next day.
Yeah.
We didn't get relieved. I was so cactus. But we had fantastic training. Norm Hazard set up the negotiators. Norm was just a genius, or is a genius of a man. He could think,
legend in the cops.
Legend, just could think so strategically. He could think sideways, backwards, in front. Like he really was fantastic. And I remember very early on, he told me to stick to my guns. He said, if the tactical blokes, give you a hard time, you tell me and I'll get up and for the rent because,
It'd be good having Norm in your back pocket.
Absolutely, because he would say, the negotiators must have as much input into the resolution as the tactical team. The tactical team don't run it.
Yeah.
The negotiators don't run it. It's done together.
Good advice.
A fantastic advice. And Norm was fantastic. We had great psychiatrists with us as well. So all of those things, the training, the psychs, were all really good, but it was very draining. And I remember one time when Rick and I were on call.
Another day?
One. Yeah.
What was that? Where were we going to spend Friday night?
Yeah, exactly. 3 jobs in one day. And the third job was a hostage job at Crow's Nest, and it was bucketing down rain. And Rick said, we've got a job, He got the call first, and it's at Crow's Nest, hostage job, da-da-da-da-da. Michael Diamond was the psychiatrist.
Yep.
And it was in a house. And Graham White was the negotiator with Belinda Neal. Graham was fantastic as a negotiator, so calm, and I was the team leader. And anyway, Michael Diamond was there, and I said, whatever you do, the tactical team actually got up into the roof and above where this woman was being held hostage. She was being held knife point.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get in there. Anyway, in the kitchen, we set up a command post in the kitchen, and I said to Michael, whatever you do, Michael, if they're going to fire anything, just hit the deck, okay? And he said, what? I said, no, seriously, just hit the deck. Anyway, sometimes you go into houses and they're a little bit odd.
Yeah.
So there's a set of false teeth on the kitchen sink.
Okay.
Charming. And then there's this box of chocolates on the dining table. And Michael's addicted to chocolate, as am I. And he said to me, can't believe you bought these chocolates. You know, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody's cactus, and he's munching on the chocolates. And I said, they were already here. He went, what? I said, sorry, Michael, I should have told you.
They taste so nice. A
Yeah.
different type of flavour.
But eventually got the guy out, and he was very scary, that guy. But, you know, the tactical team, the NEGs, all worked so well together.
Yeah.
It was a good resolution. And that poor woman, I won't go into all the details, but she was fine in the end, but it was...
Terrifying situation.
Yeah, really scary.
Yeah. Tell me, how much, because when I was at those sieges and I'm hearing what you guys are saying, or the communications, how much work behind the scenes understanding the person you're talking to? So I imagine, let's say I've gone off the rails, I've taken hostages. Do you then just do a profile on the person, get as much understanding about the person before you start speaking to them? What's the protocol?
Yeah, absolutely. And also talking to the psychs is really good. So Murray Wright, who's now the Chief Forensic Psychiatrist for New South Wales Health, great guy. And Michael, also in the old days, got to think now, Rod Milton.
Yeah, I remember Rod.
Yeah,
We
going
used to
right
consult
back.
on investigations with Rod.
Yeah, absolutely. So they were really so supportive. So, you know, you go back to them and say, okay, this is what's happening, this is what they've got, this is, you know, their background. Get as much information as possible. And sometimes talking to the family members of the offender really helped. But
Makes
then
sense.
again, sometimes it didn't, because you'd talk to them and say, look, anything strange going on, any behaviour recently? Oh, no, nothing wrong with it. He talks to the wall, but apart from that, there's nothing, you know, it's just like,
so it's
right.
hard to get that purely objective.
So you've got to sort of discern the information that you're getting sometimes, because, I think with the support of the psychs and everything really helped. And also talking to people like Norm, I would ring Norm up and say, look, you know, what about this is what's happened, da-da-da-da-da, and he'd say, right, well, I think maybe this or that. Talking to people who've got a lot of experience and talking to the tactical teams as well, getting their input and advice and all that sort of stuff. Really, it was honestly, Gary, fascinating.
Yeah.
Just thinking about these people, and just also I speak very quickly. I had to really
slow it down,
train myself to have a very monotone voice that was very slow and da-da-da. So all of that sort of stuff, you really got to concentrate on what you're doing.
and the stakes are very high too. Like
They are.
Did you ever have a situation where you've said something and the reaction you're thinking, oh no, this is going to end badly? Like, were there times with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We did have some funny situations like that. There was one negotiator where because we used to say, we're here to help you, not to hurt you. And he said, we're here to hurt you, not to help you.
Oops.
I said, next. Get him off.
Okay, that's a faux pas. That's a bad one.
Yeah, kinda.
Okay.
So just really... well, I think the other thing is, with the negotiators, you have 4 negotiators there. So as the primary negotiator, you always have the secondary right there, because, you know, you might be about to ring the person, you forget their name, and they answer the phone, you go, hello. They go, Gary?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because you just, you know, they're just there to completely and utterly support you. That's their only job. Your throat is getting dry. They're there with a bottle of water before you have to ask for it. They're just concentrating on you and everything that you need, because everybody knows that pressure is on.
You need that support. I had an experience trying to negotiate with the negotiators, and I lost the negotiation. I I was a crime manager at Chatswood, and a male had stabbed his partner and abducted some kids and said he's going to kill the kids.
Jeez.
And disappeared. I was at home. I got called, so I came into that, and I'm running that investigation. We didn't know where he was. We had the car circulated. We put an Amber Alert out and all the things that you do. And I thought it'd be a good idea to get the negotiators involved in this, because at some point in time we're going to find him. But trying to negotiate with the negotiators, no, when you know where he is, then we'll call someone out. And I'm arguing the point, but I lost the negotiation battle with the negotiators. And I got off the phone and said, "Did you get them out, boss?" I said, "No, they out-negotiated." But when we did eventually find the person, he'd gone interstate and he still had the kids, and we got a phone number. And I was on the phone to him, and I still remember this. I'd been up all night, and I'm speaking to him saying, along the lines of what you're saying, look, the lady's not dead. It hasn't gone too far. We can sort this out. All the things that are obvious that you say to de-escalate. And we're talking away on the phone, and while we're talking, we're trying to get a fix on where he is and organise tactical police to come and cordon off the area. And I've said something, and he's getting agitated. I'm trying to de-escalate, and then at one point in time, he said something. No, I'm not listening anymore, and slammed the phone down. And before we got him back on the phone, that was the longest 5 minutes I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking, oh my God, is he killing the kids now?
Yeah.
And then we just kept ringing. Eventually picked it up, and it resolved, and we got the tactical police. So I was on the phone to him, coming in and grabbing him. But that was my one experience of pressure, and I look back at my career, and if we've had a long career, we've all been in those situations at a high risk or whatever. But I still remember those 5 minutes, and the boss, the commander, I won't mention his name. He's exited the police. He's come in, because I tried to call him out when it was all going on, when the lady had been stabbed, the kids had been abducted, and we couldn't find the person that's threatening to call the kids. And he said, "Well, call me if something happens." And I'm thinking, well, fucking something has happened. So,
it's happening right now, mate.
Yeah, happening right now. He's come in for the morning, because we've been up all night, and walked in, and I'm in my office just after that phone call. And he said, "How's it going, Gary?" Just fuck off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, but that was the pressure.
Yeah.
So you guys doing it time and time again. It had to take the toll. But I would imagine you become better at it too, the more experience, like in anything you do in life, especially policing. You would be more confident when you pick it up, because okay, I've seen this situation before. I've heard this situation before.
Yeah, absolutely. And also sometimes. Some people are very easy to get out. Yeah. So we were sitting on the top of the Fairfax Tower at Chullora when they used to, print the papers out there.
Yeah, yep.
And this guy was threatening to jump off, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're hungry, so I said, and the rescue squad were there, and I said to the GDs, "Can you go and get us some Maccas?" So they brought the Maccas up, and this guy kept saying, "I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry." So we got the Maccas. We're sitting in front of him eating the Maccas, and the smell of the Maccas is wafting over, and he said, "Can I have something to eat?" And I said, "No." I said,
evil.
"Well, you can if you come back.
I love
come
it.
back here." He came back for the Maccas.
Well, see, use whatever available.
That's it. Mark Hutchins. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
Hutcher.
I know Mark. Yeah,
he went to a job where the guy was threatening to jump off a railway bridge, and he actually saw that the guy had an empty packet of Winnie Blue or something. So he said to one of the GD, first of all, he was in the surf.
Yeah.
And when his pager went off, and back in the day of pagers, and his wife's calling out to him in the surf, Mark, and everybody thought she was saying shark. So all these people...
That would have been, because he lived at Copacabana. I lived there and see him out in the surf. It's probably there.
Exactly. Yeah. So he goes in his board shorts and something, goes to the job, and anyway, so he sees this packet of, and he said to one of the GDs, "Go to my glove box, get a packet of smokes out." And so he lit up a cigarette. The bloke was back in like 2 minutes because he wanted a cigarette.
See, there, like we talk the pressure, and you're sitting here laughing. I can just, it makes me just smile thinking about those type of moments, because you can't invent them, can you?
You can't invent them.
And that's where people talk about policing. It's a hard job. Yeah, it's a hard job, but it's rewarding in the most bizarre ways.
Absolutely. You couldn't write it. Fact is stranger than fiction.
Fantastic. Look, the time has flown. I've got all my notes here and I'm not getting through any of them, Caroline. You've distracted
Sorry.
me.
I'm telling too many worries.
But we'll take a break, and when we get back, we're going to delve further into your career, counter-terrorism, because that was a big thing in your career. Also, dignitary protection in Sydney Olympics, because that was a very fascinating time to be involved in policing. And I got to say, it was the best 3 weeks of my police career. Had so much fun.
I probably signed your overtime.
Yeah, I knew there was a reason why I loved you. All right, we'll take a break and we'll come back for part 2 shortly.